Stoic Simple have made an AI persona that thinks it's Marcus Aurelius. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to Archaeo-Scope. This series is like an inverted questions of doom, where rather than you sending me a question to try and answer to the best of my ability, I have a question, a ponderance, a consideration for you in the form of a video to consider, to comment on below, discuss and debate, and hopefully together we come out of this with an answer that one of us on our own might not have considered. And today I am very much interested in the claims of a website, Stoic Simple, that they have made a really good Stoic advisor in the form of an AI bot, an AI personality that thinks it is Marcus Aurelius. When you go on the website, and I'll link to it below, they describe how they created this bot. To create our AI Marcus Aurelius persona, we utilize something called Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which is a specific variation of a large language model neural network, much like ChatGPT, which is very much in the news and all across YouTube and the internet at the moment. Here are the initial instructions that we communicated to the large language model neural network. I would like you to pretend that you are Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. You are sitting alone in your quarters in Sirmium in AD 180. You are not aware that you will die there in a few months, and you do not have any knowledge of the future apart from what I tell you. I'm going to have a conversation with you. You understand that you are having this conversation with someone who lives far in the future, and you have accepted that calmly without any question. You cannot see me. You know nothing about me yet. I want you to respond to my questions using Marcus Aurelius' personality, worldviews, opinions, and speaking style based on his writings in Meditations. You can also respond to my questions on his experiences that we are aware of or can infer from historical records. Now, this is interesting. They go on to sort of outline a few other bits and bobs here, but it's interesting to me, obviously, because I'm an archaeologist. I would love to meet people like Marcus Aurelius. In fact, apparently, my name, M-A-R-C, is partly named after the great man himself. And as a Stoic thinker, as a writer, as a Roman emperor, as a historical persona, he is actually quite fascinating. But I've just got tremendous questions here in terms of what is the purpose and the value of this sort of exercise. I know that Stoicism is going through a real vogue moment once again. Particularly in amongst the sort of the tech bros, California types out there who see it as a really good way of not having religion, but having some sort of guiding principles, and in some cases an excuse to be a slightly emotionless douchebag. That's not obviously what Stoicism is about, but on the surface it's about being unmoved, unswayed by the crashing world around you, having a higher state of I don't know, ethical and moral thinking that means that you're not moved by the thoughts and emotions of petty people around you. That's how I've heard it described to me, and I think that's how an awful lot of tech people approach Stoicism. That's why they seem to like it so much. So there's that aspect, but even more crucially, when it comes to understanding Marcus Aurelius, I have a question about the training. ChatGPT, for example, had the equivalent of 300 years worth of reading put into it using racks and racks of supercomputers. In this instance, yes, we have Meditations, we have a few historical accounts, we have some other Stoics writings that Marcus might have been aware of. But presumably all of this is being done in English. It's not being done in Latin, or more to the point, Greek, or rather ancient Greek, as it probably would have been written and understood. So there's an issue of translation. Whose translations are they using for this model? People like Robert Fagel's, for example. Wonderful translation of the Iliad. But there are other ways of reading those texts and other ways of communicating their meaning. Some less literal to the words, but more in line with the cultural meaning and resonance of those words. Others very literal to the words, but actually quite clunky and hard to really get into your brain as an English speaker today. Now, I haven't come across any of these AI models yet that aren't being run on English language basis. He says, ironically, and being unable to speak the English language, apparently. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are some others out there. I'd be amazed if, for example, in China they aren't. Someone isn't working on a Chinese equivalent. But I am very much unaware of people who are working on classical language equivalents. So this bot will have been fed, presumably. Again, the Q&A is more or less not present on the website. FAQs. I have reached out to them by email, but I haven't yet heard anything back from them. So I'm presuming that this persona has been fed a variety, possibly, of English translations of Marcus Aurelius's thoughts and feelings, particularly in meditations. Now, I love listening to meditations on audiobook. It's fantastic, but I'm always aware that I'm hearing his thoughts filtrated through someone else's brain and language into my head. So when he talks about morals and ethics, we need to be aware of the cultural specific meaning of things like good and bad, honor, dishonor, family relationships, the hierarchy within the Roman family, for example, particularly the patriarchy, the fact that the patriarch, the pater familias, was fundamental to the structure of the Roman family in a way that we can't really understand. And that's just family life. Never mind meeting strangers or the intricacies of politics. Now, we can understand this and put it into an English language structure and form, but the words themselves have cultural weight and value that it is hard to translate. And I say this having grown up as a bilingual, now I suppose quadrilingual person, loosely, certainly two and a bit, languages. The words convey something that gives you an insight into how people think and how they feel about the world around them. For me, for example, yn Gymraeg, in Welsh, the word bendigedig is so much more evocative, so much more beautiful and wonderful than the word fantastic or wonderful, or these bendigedig just bounces and feels right to me. I can't explain it. I can't fully extrapolate the difference between those two words, because I would say wonderful, excellent, fantastic, all these things. But if I really want to feel it, I will say bendigedig. Now, that's not something that a chatbot or that a large language model neural network can do. Every word is being chosen. The next word in a sentence is being chosen based on statistics, the likelihood that the next word will be the next word. It's one of the reasons why the language model sounds so human-like, because decisions are being made, calculations are being made about what word comes next. But at no point does the network have a sense of meaning of those words. It's not carrying that cultural weight, and it certainly doesn't have Marcus Aurelius's childhood memories or Marcus Aurelius's awareness of political nuance as to why he might not use certain language at a certain time. It's curious, because I really do. I love the idea of meeting virtually in some capacity people from the ancient world. I love the idea of trying even to reconstruct a prehistoric worldview. It would be incredible if we could bring together everything we know about the Gravettian in Europe, for example, in prehistoric Europe, and talk to people who are living these Paleolithic lifestyles. But there's something fundamental in the cultural grounding of language, and the way that we use language and the way that we don't use language, that I'm a bit concerned that this sort of AI project misses. And I'm even more concerned that people who construct these projects and these programs don't have the linguistic, anthropological, archaeological, historical, and philological philological people who reconstruct ancient languages for which there's no longer any evidence. That sort of grounding that will aid a more subtle a subtle outcome for this sort of project. I suppose what I'm saying is, what makes this different from someone having all of the text in a version, or all the versions of a text in a language that it wasn't written down in and simply being able to reference all those words at once? I don't think there is much difference, actually, and therefore it's quite limited, unfortunately. I don't know. It's fascinating to me. It's been, as they say, living in my head rent free for a couple of days now, and I figured I would talk to you about it. What do you think? Do you have any thoughts? Do you understand this better than I do? Do you think that some of my concerns about the cultural context, the linguistic understanding, the historical knowledge, the realistic boundaries of Marcus Aurelius's knowledge at the time? I mean, frankly, heck, just telling him that you're from the future. I've talked about in previous videos, I'll link probably at the end of this video, about how the concept of a future that is different from your own is a relatively new idea. Some of the earliest evidence for this that we find comes from maybe the Middle Ages. There was a monk at one point who talked about, wouldn't it be weird if the carts drove around without horses? That was one, I guess. But there's no evidence that people in the classical world and emperors in ancient Rome had an idea that there would be a world without Rome at its heart, for example, in the future. We are accustomed to the idea that the future will be very different, possibly because in the past few generations we've seen tremendous technological and social change on a global scale. But I'm not sure even that concept would fit into Marcus Aurelius's worldview. It doesn't make him dumb, or doesn't make him any lacking as a human being. It just means that he's not modern. I think that's the kicker here, isn't it? What do you think? Comment below, let me know. Let's have a chat, because let's have a chat GPT, because I just keep on thinking about this. I'm sort of going around in circles, and I think at the moment I'm just not convinced. Anyway, thank you for watching. Until next time, do take care. Bye-bye. Consider supporting Archaeo-Scope on Patreon for as little as $1 per month. Link available in the video description. Thank you.